What's up, guys? Welcome back to the Uncensored Critic podcast. Thank you, as always, for tuning in. I really appreciate it. Thank you for your time. And it gives me great pleasure to welcome along another member of the Little Life cast, Mr. Emilio Doorgasingh. Did I say that right?
You did, yeah, indeed.
Yes.
Doorgasingh, yeah.
Yeah, I know I clarified with you before I came on. It's happened a couple of times.
Yeah.
Guests I've opened up and gone, wait, how do I pronounce your name? It's like, oh, it's happened a couple of times. It's good. So Emilio studied drama at Goldsmiths and has been involved in a plethora of projects over his career. For TV, he has appeared in Casualty, Ted Lasso Season 2, Trigger Point, You and Me, and a little-known show called Game of Thrones. Film, he's appeared in Red 2, Awakened, Rupture, and Misses. And for theatre, The Kite Runner, West End and UK tour, Present Laughter by Noel Coward, Much Ado About Nothing at the Globe, The American Wife, and of course, this year alone, Best of Enemies at the Young Vic at the Noel Coward Theatre, and A Little Life at the Pinter and Savoy, as well as the Richmond Theatre. And that is just a small sample of Emilio's work. So, yeah. Hello, mate.
Hello. I'm glad you reminded me. I have to look at my CV to find myself and what I've been doing.
Yeah, was there a few things on there like, oh, I don't remember doing that. I haven't got the right one.
Remember most of those.
Yeah, that's all good. That's good, man. Yeah, no, how have you been? I know it's been one hell of a year for you. It's a Best of Enemies and A Little Life.
Yeah, it's extraordinary. We finished Little Life, the second one, a couple of months ago. So I've been a bit lower an hour ago auditioning, of course, and done the odd workshop. I'm taking a little break from theatre at the moment. So I'm up for various TV and film projects, so focusing on those, hopefully. But yeah, an extraordinary year, because we started on Best of Enemies this time last year, or early November last year. And then I went straight from one into the other. In fact, there was an overlap. So for about 3 weeks, I was rehearsing A Little Life while still doing Best of Enemies in the West End. So that was quite a period, but extraordinary and a fantastic problem to have, really.
Yeah, because you had you played like a politician's kind of like oh, what's the word? It's there, like a advisor, political advisor to Gore Vidal, to Zachary Quinto, and then you're playing a doctor all at the same time.
Yeah, well, I played Gore Vidal's life partner as well, Howard Austin. So it was three roles.
Yes, that's right. Yeah,
it was extraordinary. One was actually Chet Huntley, who was an NBC, very famous NBC news anchor, and then William Sheehan, who was an ABC news producer, and then Howard Austin, who was Gore's lover for 53 years or something.
Oh, wow.
So, yeah, a little bit schizophrenic and very busy track. But I love that. I love being busy. Actually, on Best of Enemies, I never had a chance to go back to the dressing room during the whole show, apart from the interval.
Yeah.
You were just changing costumes and wigs and whatever in the wings, which is quite a test. But once you're into it, once you've got the characters, and again, it was a bit daunting at first because it was three American characters, so you're worrying about how you can differentiate between those. But actually, as you go deeper and deeper into the characters itself, you realise how different they are. And then you find kind of little tricks. I went to see Uncle Vanya with Andrew Scott recently, and I used to do the same thing. So, for like Howard Austin, he had a Star of David, Jewish, and he would play with that a lot. So you immediately do that, in your head where you are. Chet Huntley had a pipe and glasses, and Howard had a wig as well. In fact, it was really interesting. One of the crew on Best of Enemies, one of the lighting guys, didn't realise for about 3 weeks that I was playing Howard because he was in a wig and I looked completely different. He didn't realise it was me. And in fact, Elliot, who I've just worked with and has been on this show, I shared a dressing room with for 5 months, he saw the show and didn't realise that it was me playing Howard. So I take that as a compliment.
Yeah.
But yeah, because
you
get so into those characters that you can turn them on and off. And that's part of the fun, really. You literally go off one side of the stage, run around changing, come back on as somebody else. I love all of that. So,
yeah. We'll come back to that in just a second. But I have a starter question for every guest, which is, as Dylan Thomas says, to begin at the beginning. Where did it all come from? Where did it all come from, Emilio? The love of acting. Where did it come from?
I'm not really sure. It must have been in me all along, I think.
Yeah.
The only other sort of artistic person in my family was my paternal grandmother. She was an opera singer. But I don't know, I was quite shy as a young boy. But at home, I always kind of performed with the family. You know, I'd be singing and dancing and doing impressions and whatever. And as soon as I did that, I would just get totally into the character. That would take over, and the shyness would disappear. And then from very early on, I started doing plays at school and escaping into those characters and just loved it, really. But I never imagined that I would ever do it as a career. I mean, it was just not there at all. I think the careers officer at school when I was doing A-levels suggested that I might be a prison warder. And
okay.
what? And I don't know how those work, those things. And my parents had always pushed me to be a doctor. Classic. So all of my childhood, I imagined I would. In fact, I honed it down quite early on. Very specifically, I was going to be a gynecologist, I decided. I have no idea why. I probably had just heard the word and thought, well, that sounds impressive. I mean, like the age of 8 or something. And so that pretense, if you like, carried on until I was about to do my A-levels. I was at boarding school, and so I took an exit and went home for the weekend and waited right until the very last moment before I headed back to say, because I had to do my A-level options the next day, and I said to my scientist father, I don't think I'll do biology, chemistry, physics. I was thinking more English, French, and history of art. And then there was this kind of nuclear explosion. And then my parents very craftily got together with the sixth form master. And the compromise was that I did English, history, and economics. And economics I'd never even studied. So I had to do the O-level, like I revised for it.
Yeah.
Very quickly to do that and get out of the way. In fact, my school, I went to this Catholic boarding school, and they were hosting all the clerics who were there for the then Pope's visit, who was nearby in Coventry up in the Midlands. So we had all these heads of the clergy, bishops and archbishops and cardinals staying at my school, and the prefects were all, the students were all looking after them. So I had to sneak out for a couple of hours, went out to the rugby, sat in the rugby pitch with my notes for my economics O-level and revised in that weekend, and somehow I passed. So anyway, so I realised that I was being pushed in another direction. In fact, they tried to make me study Oxford, to do law at Oxford. So it was the other big camp, but I hated doing it. I met a fabulous woman. She was a barrister who came to give a talk on law at my school. She was the mother of one of the boys, one of my friends. And I was expecting this woman to arrive in a powdered wig and robes and stuff like that. And she came in wearing a pink beret and wearing fishnet stockings. I thought, well, maybe the law is for me. This is fabulous. What a character. And the sixth form master pulled the chair out while she looked at it and lay across the desk, and gave this amazing talk. And I spoke to her afterwards. And I said I was thinking of doing law. And she said, well, what do you really like? What are your real loves? And I said, well, English and literature and drama. And she said, do that. You can do the law anytime. So I eventually got my way and persuaded my parents to let me do drama and English at Goldsmiths. And I had a fantastic time there and loved it, and I haven't looked back since. So.
Brilliant.
But yeah, I don't know. It's been great. And they say I had always done plays at school. Actually, a couple of years ago, I was really honoured to go. That's my school, secondary school, Princethorpe College, invited me back to open the theatre there. It had been refurbed, so that was a real honour. So that was really nice. And in fact, bizarrely as well, last year, before I did an episode of a new series, Sister Boniface, about a sleuthing nun, and bizarrely, they filmed at my school because it was all I was filming in the Cotswolds, but yeah. So I don't know. It was just there. It was ingrained, and I was always, I guess, going to do it somehow.
Was there ever a moment? Were you on stage or doing something where you thought, yeah, this is what I really want to do?
I remember about the age of 9, seeing in the school, in the staff room, that they had the casting for the school nativity play, was up, and I was down to play the Angel Gabriel, and I happened to know that year the Angel Gabriel was getting a brand new costume. And it was a great role because you came into the church, you were the heavenly host of angels behind you, you had a special light on you, fantastic. And then a few days later, they cast Annette Glancy in the role, and I played Joseph with a tea towel on my head. I was gutted, and at that moment, I knew. And a few years ago, Annette friended me on social media, and we met for lunch, and I said, "Okay, there's something I need to discuss." She had no idea, but for 40 years, I'd kept that in me. So the drive was always there, I guess you could say, from the age of 9. It was that I was chasing those roles. So.
Was that 9-year-old injustice of like, I want that role?
It goes deep. It goes really deep.
Oh, mate. Tell me about your experience at Goldsmith. What was it like sort of actually being in an environment where you were, it was, taking the next step in a way?
Yeah, it was great. And back then, we're talking late 80s or something. A lot fewer guys applied for those courses or on those courses. So what that meant was that I got to act all the time because all 3 years, needed actors for all the plays. So I was just doing plays the whole time. I think the English side of my degree maybe suffered a little because you also had a lot of reading to do. I'd have a Dickens to read.
I don't have time to read all these books
on the desk in the dressing room. But it was fantastic. We had a great head of drama there, Nesta Jones, and it was a really vibrant atmosphere. And Goldsmiths has such a crazy buzz about it. So many famous artists and designers and whatever have been there as well, and really good facilities. And we had the Laban Centre next door there, so we used to dance there, and they had TV studios. And so even back then, we were doing all sorts. And so yeah, I came out, although it was a drama degree, not an acting course, it's a drama school course. Yeah. I think I was very well prepared coming. And then subsequently, I don't know, my career has been one of those things where via a friend of a friend, I had a meeting with a casting director who then cast me in a biblical epic in Morocco, on which I met Ed Hall, the director, who was doing his last acting job, and he was about to start Propeller, the all-male Shakespeare company, a few months later, and asked me to become a founder member. So I worked with Propeller on and off for an 8-year period. And then that led to doing stuff at the National, and then TV stuff started happening. So kind of one thing's led to another, really. I've never planned a career, just been open to it. So I think it worked. Hopefully it'll carry on.
No, of course it will. Of course it will. Yeah, I think at this point you just find, you just do anything to just kind of keep yourself going. Just keeping the bug alive. That's the important thing. So let's jump. So I've got 2 sort of main points for today. We're going to start with your work. Well, you've done a lot of work over the years, but 2 of your biggest, this is probably one of your busiest years. Best of Enemies and A Little Life. Yeah. So let's talk about Best of Enemies, which I saw at the Noel Coward, which I thought was a wonderful, wonderful show. Really, really interesting.
It was a great show. So dynamic. It was an incredible show.
Yeah, it was written by James Graham as well, wasn't it?
The prolific James Graham, who is amazing. Just after that, he did Tammy Faye's. I got Dear England, another episode of Sherwood, and I saw Dear England twice actually because I got friends in there. James is an amazing writer, and we were really lucky to have him in the room with us originally when we were at the Young Vic for the whole rehearsal period. And we had massive changes. You were talking about the tech before we went live.
Yeah.
But all through previews and stuff like that, we were having huge changes. Characters were going, whole scenes were disappearing, and then you'd have to do the new version of the show that night. But it was all about getting to those debates, which are at the heart of the show, and because that really is at the nub of that show. And so you do what you have to do, and sometimes you just have to suck up things. I got away actually. I escaped. All I don't know how. I was the only one who wasn't weeping in the corner.
Yeah.
But you're all serving the story, and so that's what matters.
Yeah, because I mean, like I said to you before, like the tech the amount of scene changes. Because I feel like with James Graham, like my take from his writing, it's like politics but on speed. You know,
Oh God, yes.
you're going through like all these significant moments in history in just over 2 hours and 15 minutes. You know, it's huge.
Well, when you read the cast list of that, you've got, you
Yeah.
know, Aretha Franklin, James Baldwin, Andy Warhol, and these are characters that pop up. Martin Luther King will pop up for seconds or minutes at
Mm,
most. So there's like 40 different characters in that play.
mm,
So, and it went like a rocket. I mean, you were just, because there were no, as with Little Life, actually, the scenes just sort of merged
mm.
or overlapped even. So the pace of it was extraordinary. And yeah, James could he can write about everything at once. I think that's what's so clever and wasn't there because you're dealing with, you know, you've got it's 1968, so you've got the backdrop of Vietnam, race riots happening, the student riots happening in Paris and Grosvenor Square here and all. So it was an incredibly important year.
Mm.
The Nixon election Nixon's about to be elected, Vietnam, Watergate, all of that is coming, and James manages to slot that in flawlessly. I don't know how he does it, but what you focus on is the characters and the relationships. So that's why I think he's a genius
Yeah,
writer.
because you had excuse me, you had about three characters in the whole thing, didn't
I
you?
was playing three characters, yeah. Chet Huntley, who was a very famous NBC News anchor.
Hmm.
William Sheehan, who was an ABC TV producer, news producer. And then Howard Austin, who was Gore Vidal's long-term lover of 53 years and partner. And so there were very different characters. I'm glad there were very different characters because when I first saw I was playing three Moroccan characters, I was going, oh, how do you differentiate here? And should I try
Yeah.
creating different accents and things like that? But actually, as you go kind of deeper and deeper into the character work, you realize how different they are, and that just comes across. And then, you know, you have little techniques that allow you to flip from one to another because often you would literally finish one scene as one character, come in the next scene
Mm.
as another character. So massively quick changes in the wings usually. So, you know, Chet had a pipe and glasses. And so you knew if you're putting those on, that's who you were. And the voice and the character and everything else comes with it. And a character like him, because he was of that period, 1960s, they had a very particular way of talking. This is Chet Huntley, you know, and they sound a bit like the American Eagle in the Muppets, you know, it's one of those voices. So you can switch those on. And then Howard, of course, is very flamboyant and great fun and was always comes on singing. So, you know, and he had a great wig. And people who saw the show, including friends, didn't realize it was me playing Howard. So thanks to the wig department. I quite like it permanently, actually. But yeah, all those things help. And it's great. It's great fun. And I love, as we were saying earlier, I love having a busy track in it when I'm doing a show. I don't want to be sitting around. So, and there was no sitting around on that show.
No, no.
I never got a chance to go back to the dressing room ever during the show, except in the interval.
Yeah. I suppose that's quite rewarding as well. You get to
It's really rewarding because once you're in a flow, it's just fantastic. And also, the show goes by like that because it's non-stop. But yeah, no, very exciting.
Yeah, because we mentioned earlier about the for anyone who's seen the show, that it's like multiple transitions between different leaders, different time periods, different events, like the riots, and then Martin Luther King, and then you know, so many things happening all at once. And I said to you before, like my first kind of real tech run experience at drama school, where you do a scene, then you stop, and then they sort of organize the lights, organize the sound, etc. But that tech run must have gone on for a long time. I mean, how was that?
It was exhausting and exciting, and we were still getting notes.
Yeah, scene changes and
rewrites.
Yeah.
So it was mad. Yeah, and there were technical problems with sound and with lighting and the screens. There was like the studio gallery, which had three big screens, and they were supposed to be able to go opaque. They're relit, so you could be lit up there or not lit or whatever, and there were all sorts of problems going on.
Oh,
I think they maybe cancelled the first movie. I can't remember now. We get live feeds coming in with camera things, so you running around. I mean, we were like lunatics. So, actually, when we first did it, the young Vic, because it was in the round, and you saw audience actually watching people kind of go, wasn't he just sort of there and playing something else and doing that? But all that is exciting for the audience, but it's exciting for us as well. So no, it was amazing.
Yeah.
Jeremy Herrin, who directed that, is a brilliant director, I think, really. You know, and I remember him saying, actually, because Howard doesn't appear till the second half of the play, and he was kind of my favourite character, Howard, because he was such a big character. And when I first rehearsed his scenes, Jeremy was, well, welcome to the pantheon of amazing characters, and here's yet another, you know, extraordinary character that James had written. So, yeah, it was fun.
Yeah,
and everybody was playing multiple roles, really, apart from the two leads, Zach and David.
Apart from Zach and David, just quickly, what's he like to work with? In fact, both of them, David Harewood and Zachary Quinto, what they like?
They are both delightful. I'm not just saying that, they really are. We've become good friends. I saw Zach recently. He was here for a wedding and we went out for drinks. I'm hopefully going to meet up with both him and Hanya from Little Lives. So the two worlds collide there in New York. They both live in New York. And I was planning to go to New York before Christmas. And now I'm waiting to hear about a couple of other jobs that could take me to Spain or Cape Town or Budapest. I can't remember, so I'm not sure what's happening.
No, the work comes first.
The work comes first. But well, Zach came to dinner here actually back in February with some of the cast and some friends. And David's great. While doing Little Life, we had a break and I went on holiday as Caribbean, and I took David's book with him, which I've been meaning to read for ages. And then we had a little Zoom call on that, and I was just chatting about it. He's a delight, a real delight.
Yeah, they're two amazing actors.
I've been very lucky, with my leading men. James Norton and Luke Thompson, who just worked with on Live. The whole cast, actually, and both casts are amazing. I've been very lucky throughout my career. I've had very few bad experiences of working with other actors. Those actors are lovely people, you know. That's why they're actors. You know, they go into this business because they have these great personalities. And it's fun. I get to work with lots of people.
Yeah, I think we'll come back to that in a minute. But I just got a question about, because you played all these roles, and you know, multi-rolling is such a huge thing. Like particularly working on a James Graham play, you know, and we're talking earlier about, you said just now about how to distinct the voices. It's, and you know, so from your experience on that, how did you make all three of those characters sort of unique? How did you make them all stand out?
So initially I was very concerned about that, because I said they're, you know, all three are American characters, and so you can differentiate. And I was thinking, you know, do we have them from completely different states? But then they're also all real people. So you've got research available to you. There wasn't much about William Sheehan, but there was a lot of footage of Chet Huntley. So very easy to take on that persona just by watching the old footage. He had a long-running bi-coastal show with David Brinkley, played by Tom Godwin, who's done one of these as well. So there's loads of footage of that to be able to watch. And so immediately you got the pipe and the glasses going, and you're into him, and they're saying that very kind of particular voice of, this is Chet Huntley, this is welcome to NBC, you know. And so already, well, as soon as you start going into that kind of deep character work, you've got the differences there for you. You just have to play the truth of the characters. And then Howard is incredibly flamboyant. He comes on singing "You Always Hurt the One You Love" and teasing Gore and the new boyfriend and all that. So you get to camp it up, really, and play with all of that lovely flamboyance, but also, again, beautiful poignancy that James Graham writes. And I'd had some lovely lines, none of which I can remember now. That undercut all that, you know, the kind of comedy of a character like that, and the bigness, and just beautiful. So you focus on who the people are, really, and not trying to do an impression necessarily, but finding out what makes them different, so that you don't have to just shoehorn them into a particular accent or whatever. That's less important, really. Because the differences just sort of naturally emerge, really. And you have little tricks that you could do for yourself. So you have a particular stance or mannerism. You might play. I used to play with something of Howard's, a chain that he had, or play with Chet's pipe and stuff like that. And so you immediately switch on to who that character is that you're playing, and it just then becomes automatic.
Mm. Yeah. And I think another
schizophrenia only happens in the rehearsal room.
Schizophrenia. Yeah. I suppose actually that ties into the next question, really. How did like the schizophrenia, as you call it, and then also the intensity as well, because you're, on stage, 2 minutes is one character, and then you go off, quick change, and you're back on again. And it seems like a production where your mind is on like red alert or high alert the whole time. It's like, how do you sort of get through that?
It is, and it's sort of exhausting, but only afterwards, if you know what I mean. Yeah. Once you come off stage, you kind of go, whew. But you don't really have time to think about that when you're doing it, and that's kind of the brilliance of it. You literally just dive in. So, the scene one, we had a pre-show, and then you're straight into it. The music starts, and you just go, and then you're not on automatic, but you're on this track that on this train track that can't stop. So you just keep going, but that's exhilarating. It's really thrilling.
Oh yeah, of course.
I love multi-rolling, actually.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
And I think it's important to sort of have this, and also there's this big like diversity between all those three roles as well, making them more unique and everything. And I have to admit, watching it back, because it's on National Theatre at home now, so you can watch it on demand. I saw your name in the credits, and I remember seeing it in the theatre and not realizing it was you as well. I was one of those people.
Which is great. Yeah, no, lots of people said that, and I take that as a compliment.
Oh, hugely.
It means that those characterizations have worked, and you're just watching the story and not looking at the actor. I think what was more schizophrenic was the point where I was rehearsing Little Life while still performing Best of Enemies, because then I had to switch from a completely different character and a different time to that I've been working on all day. And when you're rehearsing, you're really focused on developing the character. And then I would leave rehearsals, usually a bit early, so I could be in time for the evening show of Best of Enemies. And you just had to leave the other character at the door. So that was tough. Yeah, it was hard work, but again, amazing, and what a brilliant problem to have, and then do 4 great characters in 2 amazing shows with 2 brilliant directors and a wonderful cast. So
Jeremy Herrin and Ivo Van Hove at the same time. Yeah,
no, exactly.
Yeah, I mean that's interesting, because you leave like this. I can see you going from like this poignant, traumatic experience of A Little Life and Andy and the relationship he has with Jude, and then so you jump into this high intensity, high octane, adrenaline fueled political
1960s madness of parties and riots and but that's the joy of that's the joy of what we do. We get to play all of these wonderful roles. We get to be all the people we aren't. That's what I think. That's what we were talking earlier about, what where my love of acting came from, and it was the ability to just submerge yourself, to throw yourself into being somebody else. I still say, I'm the luckiest person in the world, because I get to dress up and pretend for a living, and I do a job that I love. Many people, if not most people, don't love their jobs. They do their job for a reason, to earn money, to pay the rent or the mortgage, or pay the school fees, or whatever it is. A lot of people obviously get great job satisfaction, but I'm really lucky to do a job that I absolutely love and would find any way of doing. So very lucky.
Yeah, very lucky indeed. And I think because of the craziness, I think, crazy I don't think is the right word, but the intensity and the kind of huge adrenaline fuel ride that Best of Enemies is, you've got all these things happening at once across the 2 acts. What would you say was like the core message of this piece? Why particularly did James wanted to write about this time, and what message do you think that play wants to send out, do you think?
I think subtly he's reflecting back our current times. I mean, I don't want to speak for James and what he's trying to do. So it's not just about 1968. It's about all the issues that people have with each other, with situations, with government, with war, with race, with everything. It's covering an awful lot of subjects, and I think that setting with a background of Vietnam, etc., is just a way of talking about those issues. And I think that's what the play does, really.
Yeah, brilliant. And yeah, so if anyone who's interested, go and check it out. It's on National Theatre at home. Emilio gives a wonderful performance in all three of his roles. And yeah, it's fantastic work, man.
Thank you very much.
Let's jump into the main course of today, which is, of course, A Little Life. Elliot Cohen's been on the episode, been on the podcast recently. And so is Rowan Carr, who was your stagehand backstage every night.
At the Pinter, yeah.
At the Pinter, yeah, that's right. I think it was at the Richmond as well. I could be getting that wrong. Sorry, Rowan. But yeah, what a show! What a show! The theatre event of this year, directed by Ivo Van Hove, James Norton, yourself, Elliot, Luke Thompson, Amari Douglas, just the whole group of people.
An incredible package all round. The novel written by Hanya Yanagihara, amazing. Yep. When I heard it was happening, I was like, I saw View from a Bridge, which Ivo directed at the Young Vic years ago, Mark Strong, and since then I've wanted to work with him. So when I heard from my amazing agents at Emma and Nick at Angus Patelli that they were going to see me, I was beside myself with excitement because I really want to work with Ivo. And yeah, it was great. And I knew the associate director, Jeff James, because he directed me in a Jane Austen adaptation last year, Persuasion. So he was the associate. He's worked with Ivo, I think, half a dozen times as the associate director and kind of translator and go between. So I actually met Jeff and Julia Oren, who were the casting director, who I knew from before. I never met Ivo, so I auditioned on tape with Jeff, and then this is while I was rehearsing Best of Enemies.
Oh my god!
And so I said, I'm obviously busy with rehearsals and things and stuff. And are you going to be doing recalls or that? And then, yeah. And then a couple of weeks later, I was just offered the job. So he obviously thought I was a good fit for Andy. I'm thrilled to say. So while I'm doing Best of Enemies, I then knew I was going into this other amazing show, extraordinary. And in fact, we had one of the producers, Wessex Grove, on Best of Enemies, was the sole producer of A Little Life.
Oh wow!
And I have to say, they are amazing, Wessex Grove. And Tom, Ben, they so looked after us because it was as you say, it was a hell of a show. It was a big and very demanding show, nearly 4 hours long. We were doing 8 shows a week for most of the run. And so physically, mentally, and because the subject matter is very dark and distressing, but we had such incredible support, therapists, physios, whatever we wanted on 2 show days, because obviously there's a very small gap between shows. They would bring food in for us, amazing food actually. And they really looked after us, and they took us out and stuff. They got us backstage, access all areas to Elton John's show at the O2 as a little treat. Wow. God bless them. I know. That was after our first double show on a Sunday, I think. Or no, first Sunday matinee. We went straight there to the O2. God bless. No, but I mean, they so care about theatre and love theatre. And it was just really a project from their hearts that they've been working on for years to get that to happen and make it happen. It was incredible. And working with Ivo and his partner Jan, who's the designer, and the whole team on there. It was extraordinary. It was a very different way of working. From day one, we were off book, so we had to know a whole part completely by heart on day one, and we were rehearsing in Bermondsey in the studios that were completely kitted out. So we had a full working set. So with working ovens and a hot plate and taps and blood pumps and all the things we needed. We were in costume from day one in rehearsals. So it kind of felt like doing a 5-week tech, really. So that by the time we did the first previews at Richmond, well, in fact, we didn't do our first run of the show, complete run, until the last day of rehearsals. And we hadn't done any. We hadn't run first half, hadn't run bits. We went straight into a 3 hours 40 full show in front of an audience of producers and backers and all the rest of it.
Ouch.
And we were terrified.
Jesus.
And it went brilliantly. I mean, we could have done that as a public performance. It was ready, you know.
Oh, good.
And that's testament to all the work that everyone had put in, not least Ivo and Jan and James, of course, because it's what he does in the show is phenomenal. He's on stage the whole time and suffering abuse basically for the whole thing. Extraordinary thing. So yeah, I mean, it was, but there was such a, as you say, it was billed as the theatrical event of the year, and I think it lived up to that, certainly.
Absolutely.
And there was such a buzz about the show before it started. You were excited. We were excited because we knew there was such huge expectations for the show. A little nervous as well because we realised, you know, the book is such a huge thing, such a bestseller, and so important to people. People care about it, you know, and that it has its own following. Almost cult following, the book, you know, people have read it loads of times and pass it around their friendship groups and stuff like that. And because of the subject matter, you know, you're doing something that matters, that so you have a real sense of responsibility to put those issues on a big platform like that. And because it was already going to be a success in a way, because it sold, the Pinter show sold out within like a couple of days of going
quick.
So we knew very early on that we were going to transfer to the Savoy, or we didn't know where at first, but we were going to transfer. So yeah, you had this huge weight of expectation, but also thrilling to be able to try and bring that to life. And because it had been, the show originally was done in Dutch with Ivo's company in Amsterdam. So
2017, I think it was.
So it is reworking of that. So we knew we were in safe hands because it had worked for us. But it's still, people have seen both, said they were different in feel and different style of acting in a way, and a different kind of approach to the material. So we made it our own, hopefully.
Yeah, of course you did.
But an incredible thing to be a part of.
Yeah, because I think that one of the differences between the Dutch production and yours was the Dutch one was about 4 hours long.
It was even longer.
Even longer, and I think with you guys, it was 3 hours 40, 3 hours 45. Yeah. So there was, I imagine, I mean, I don't want to speak for Ivo, but I imagine he probably took some bits out. He thought maybe that wasn't working anymore, then sort of trimmed it down in a way, or maybe it was just, I don't know.
Maybe he could be more succinct in English. I'm not sure.
Possibly.
Maybe the Dutch requires more words. I don't know. I don't know.
Yeah, there's a question I've got for Ivo when he comes on. Hey, Ivo. But what just the show, because I was very lucky actually, because I saw that A Little Life, it was sold out pretty much. Like you tried to get tickets and it was impossible. But I knew some people with ATG who produced it, or who was the ticketing body for that. Yeah, and I said, look, is there any way that, I know you can probably try your luck on the door with returns and stuff like that, but most of the time you go there and they go, no, I'm sorry, there's nothing here for you, sir. And I didn't want to go all the way into London and realize that. So, but anyway, long story short, she said, just keep an eye out. Every Monday, there's going to be some tickets being released, and some of them are going to be on stage because there was stage seating as well. So I thought, okay, fine.
In all three theatres, we had audience on stage.
All three, and luckily I went on, and there was one Thursday matinee, and there was a stage seat up for grabs at the Pinter. So I just thought, right, just get it. So I got it, and I sat there for the matinee. And afterwards, we'll talk more about like the whole experience in a second. But one thing that really went through my mind at the end, apart from everything that happened with Jude, and of course what James had to do, and then what all of you had to do, in fact. But I'm thinking, we've just this is the first show of the day. They've got an hour off, and they've got to do this all over again, and it's another 3 hours. I'm thinking, how are they going to do that?
It's really interesting actually, because I've done other shows that have been very demanding, and often you come in on those, particularly the midweek matinee. Somehow you come in thinking, I've got a mountain to climb. I've got to do 2.5-hour shows. Well, this we're doing 2, 3 an hour, 40 minutes. But it never felt that daunting because the nature of the piece worked so well. And audience members and friends kept saying it really didn't feel that long.
No, it didn't. It didn't. No.
And when you're inside it, it doesn't either, because it's so fast moving, so fast paced. It just flew along. And so, yeah, physically, it was demanding. And psychologically, initially we were thinking, we don't know how this is going to impact on us because of the nature of the thing. But actually, in a lot of ways, it's harder for the audience because once we're performing the play, we're in the moment at any moment, and we're thinking only about that and then the next moment. Whereas as an audience member, they're getting the full horror of it coming at you.
Yeah.
In one go.
Like a huge wave.
So once you're doing it, it's just like doing another show in lots of ways, and you just do it. So, but having said that, we had a break between the Pinter and the Savoy. And when we came back, everyone was like,
right.
Not to go there again.
Here we go again.
For another 5 weeks, having been lying on the beach for 2 weeks, so you kind of go, oh God, yes, I remember what this is now. And it's a beast of a play, and dealing with this stuff.
Yeah. In
every way, though, big. A little life, but a lot of play. But it just, and there were times where, James physically exhausted. It's not a secret he has diabetes, and dealing with those issues. And I'd look at him and think, my God, you are amazing. What you're doing, we're all doing a tough job, and you're really amazing. But then, we'd kind of catch the eye or something at the curtain call, and you'd see that every single performance got a full standing ovation, a full immediate standing ovation. That's only happened to me on one other show, The Kite Runner, where every single performance gets a full standing ovation. And you go, oh, it's worth it. It's worth every bit of effort that you have to put into doing it, because it matters so much. It matters so much. You look around those auditoria, and you know that there are lots of people in there who are affected by those issues, who are dealing with those issues of abuse or self-harm or body dysmorphia or whatever it is, or abuse and rape, whatever, And you think, well, no, it matters. Love a good musical, but
slightly different.
Like the Kite Runner, with A Little Life, especially. That what you're doing really means something to people, and they know also, because the book has such a following, that a lot of those audience members knew my character as well as I did. They really think that you're a family member or a friend, and they talk to you like they know you as Andy. And it's extraordinary when you get that kind of reaction to a piece. So what a thing to be involved in.
Yeah. Had you read the book before you heard that they were doing a play?
No.
Right.
I hadn't read it when I was cast as Andy.
Yeah.
And so I read it while I was doing Best of Enemies over Christmas. Merry Christmas. And then because I knew by then I'd been cast as Andy, obviously reading it, I was very focused on him, and I loved him. I think he's a great character for all his flaws and problems. And lots of people actually told me, in the queue when we're signing programs or books or whatever, that they liked Andy. He's one of their favourite characters in the book. I think because he's one of the good guys. He tries his damnness to help, and he has that tenacity and this just unwillingness to ever give up on Jude. And I think people really respond to that. And also I think you feel, because he's very capable and competent and assured. So in a world of all the kind of horror that's happening, people said, you felt very safe. He was on stage, you know, it's like, okay, things will get done. He'll get bandaged, and it'll be all right until the next time.
He's going to be okay. He's going to be okay. Yeah. But Andy is, I resonate with that a lot. When I saw you on stage as Andy, I thought, I think, right, finally, here's someone who's going to help him, and I think it's repeated. I don't know what the exact lines are, so I'm going to paraphrase slightly. But Andy, so I think in the book as well, I read the book after I watched the play, because to be perfectly honest, I hadn't heard of the book before the play. Then I saw it, it was this book, and I read it, and I just thought, wow, just the quality of Hanya's storytelling is just
extraordinary.
It's extraordinary, yeah. But one thing that really stuck with me about Andy was, I think he says again and again and again, look, Jude, you have to get better. Like, you cannot keep doing this to yourself. Do you have any idea what you're doing? And Jude sadly doesn't, because I think it's hardwired in his brain that this is his coping mechanism, is to self-harm and to forget about the memories of.
Well, Willem says in the play, in the book, how do you help someone who doesn't want to be helped?
Yeah.
And that's the problem. But the joy and the beauty of characters like Andy in the piece is that he won't give up,
Yeah.
And he's incredibly frustrated. He says to him in the book, I think, rather than the novel, it says, you have been ignoring my advice for 30 years. But that kind of says it all, because he will not give up. He's his favourite patient. And that's part of the problem, actually, with Andy, is that he sort of crosses a line, and he makes his life's work almost to try and cure Jude, knowing really that he can't. So Jude becomes this like project for him, and he doesn't take insurance, so he never charges Jude. So this is a project. It's like a pet project that literally goes on for 30 years. Because they meet early on. So Andy is a doctor at the university. In fact, he went to the same university, but then becomes a doctor in the university hospital. Treats Jude the first time he has a problem. Jude doesn't follow up on it, so he actually goes to his frat house or whatever it is and insists that he gets the treatment he needs. And then from that moment on, really, they develop this kind of almost like a codependency. It's a very odd relationship. He's the only doctor that Jude trusts. And so although he's an orthopedic surgeon, he actually goes to see him for everything. So he patches him up whenever he tries to harm himself or anything. If he's got a cold, he'll go and see it. So they have this extraordinary relationship. And very close, especially you see it more in the book, because there isn't scope in the play to do it. But like when he was recuperating at one point, they would have a meal together every Friday night. He would see him every day. He would phone at midnight to have these long conversations. So he's a confidant, and all of those things to Jude. It's a remarkable relation. He goes to Andy's wedding, and there's the children. It's like, but that's where it gets muddled, because the lines between being a great friend and a medical professional are, somebody who should be detached becomes sort of unethical. That's why Hanya said when I first met her that he's a bad doctor. Great friend,
terrible doctor.
Yeah, I know. But playing that dichotomy was really interesting, because it's tough to play that, because you see somebody who you love suffering so much and you want to help them, but probably you're not the right person. I mean, what he should have done is referred him to other doctors who could be more detached and could help him. But he can't. He can't let that go. And that's the beautiful, also frustrating thing.
Yeah,
but he gets really frustrated with him.
Just
scream at each other. But it's all adds from a place of love,
Yeah, and I think just hearing you talk about that now it's almost like Jude sort of sees Andy as like an extension of comfort in a way, because he's had so little, few people he could trust in his life, or people he thought he could trust.
Yeah.
He sees Andy as like this, but he doesn't want to lose that sense of comfort.
Well,
I
he's
don't,
kind
I
of
don't
like
want to see anyone else.
he's like a big brother, and all those kind of roles he plays, teacher, whatever. He lectures him, but the problem is they're both playing games. Because every couple of months, Andy gives him a big lecture. And you've got to sort yourself out. Got to do things. You've got to eat properly. Got to whatever. And Jude goes, "Oh yeah, sorry, yeah." And then within a month or two, they're back into the same cycle, and he goes back, and that cycle should have been broken really by Andy, but he never does. And if in any way he's responsible for what happens with Jude in the end, that's at the core of it, really.
I think
loving somebody too much.
Yeah,
Yeah,
it does more damage than good in this.
Yeah, it can do. It certainly can.
I think there's one question for today I have for you is, well, we've probably talked about this already, but who is Andy to you? Who is he?
I don't know, Andy. It's complicated because Andy's journey in the play is so tied up with Jude and Willem's stories, so that I don't know. So they met early on, and so they have this relationship. He's like 10 years older than them, so he assumes this role of responsibility. There's a kind of fascination, almost obsession, with Jude, I think. As I say, he tries to save him from himself, but he doesn't know how to do that. As I said before, how do you help someone who doesn't want to be helped, who has these suicidal tendencies? And I think he lives with fear constantly, Andy, as does Jude and Willem, really. There's a description of how they didn't have to relearn fear. I'm paraphrasing now, because the fear was always with them. So every time he sees him, particularly after like the suicide attempt or whatever, it's like, what am I doing? What am I doing wrong? How am I not helping you? And instead of, as I said, seeking out other, more appropriate help, he just doubles down on it. And, goes, no, I've got to save him. I've got to save him. And so that's who he is this really conflicted, complex character. And he devotes so much of his time and energy into this one patient, this sort of favorite patient of his favorite obsession, while at the same time being a busy doctor, running a clinic, having a wife and 2 kids, and but he's always there for him. And he says to Jude, "I will always be here for you," which is why at the end, it sort of ends quite sadly for Andy, because he's 62 by the end of the novel, and he says to Jude in one of the meetings that he says, "I'm tired." He wants to retire, and so he tries to find a replacement for him. Jude, of course, rejects that and won't have it, and keeps making suggestions and sends him to somebody else, and then eventually it's not going to work, because this relationship is there for good. And so it's very sad, because it's then too late. Jude dies, and then, spoiler alert.
Yeah, that's all right. I'll put a disclaimer in there. Don't worry.
And 3 years later, Andy dies of a heart attack, and I think he's actually heartbroken, because he hasn't been able to help him. And and as I say, he's made it kind of his life's work to save this person from himself, to cure the incurable.
Do you think Andy blames himself for Jude dying?
To a degree, yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
Well, not just for the betrayal, what he knows that Jude sees as a betrayal, because I've promised him that I'll always be there, and then I said, well, actually, I'm not going to be there after a certain point. So it's he definitely feels guilt. Yeah.
I'm reminded of there was one moment in the play where Jude, it's in the second act. I'm not sure how much I can say. I'll just abbreviate to it. But Jude harms himself in a particularly gruesome way, and more than, because up to that point, the audience have kind of got a flavor of what he's capable of doing to himself. But then in the second act, it involves a lighter. Sadly, that's all I'll say. But he harms himself in a particularly awful way, and then he goes to Andy. And he goes to Andy. I think I remember your line, and it was, you sit him down on the bed and you say to him, Jude, what have you done? And then at that point, I think Andy's patience is snapped, and he goes, Jude, I'm sorry, but this is gonna hurt. This is gonna hurt, and inflicting even more pain on someone who's already just done immense damage to himself, and he's just made it worse. Yeah,
there's no way around that. Victims are, they're difficult injuries to deal with. So again, you see conflicted Andy there, where he's trying to be calm and procedural and deal with this issue, this horrific injury in front of him, but it's also, he's looking into the face of this person he loves. But he's so angry at that point. So that's like the peak of his frustration, and he actually delivers an ultimatum to him at that point and says, I'm not covering for you anymore, which also underlies the sort of conspiratorial nature of their relationship as well, because he does cover for him. He should, again, it's in the novel rather than the play in that scene. He actually threatens to have him hospitalized, which he should have done before. He threatens to have him committed. He says, this is the end. You can't. But then it goes on again, and it's devastating. I loved that scene, although it was really hard to watch, and literally painful to watch.
I think I've got a question here.
That was actually one of the main points where people fainted.
Actually, I'll come to that question in a second. Actually, another one was the reaction, because I talked to Elliot about it as well, and what was your experience of the audience reactions throughout the run, but in all three of the theatres?
Responded to the thing.
I responded to the piece.
It was extraordinary. As I said, we knew from the get-go that this was going to be a thing, and how devoted people were to the novel, and so what the responsibility we had to bring that to life. But again, as I was saying, from the very first show in Richmond, that was just this extraordinary action. You have to remember, people have been through 3 hours and 40 minutes of this insane, tortuous thing in front of their eyes, so they feel audiences, I think, felt so involved with the piece, so moved, so affected by it. That's why we would get those kind of standing ovations and cheers and applause, and because they've been on this journey, and people were shocked. People couldn't speak, afterwards. I had friends who just they didn't know what to say. They were literally shell-shocked. And we did have nearly every performance some kind of incidents. I've never known so many show stops in my life. We would have to get to a show sometimes, and people were fainting and throwing up and being carried out. I think 2 people had seizures. It's this extreme theatre. Because it's such a visceral piece, people had, extreme reactions to it, because I think there'd be something wrong with you if you didn't react to a piece like that, in an extreme way, because it's just, the stuff that you're seeing, and I think it's the injustice. Seeing someone suffer is the hardest thing, I think, if you have any sort of empathy. was going to get political though. I'm not.
No, go ahead, man. Go ahead.
No. I've always found it difficult. I was an altar boy when I was young, so I went to Catholic schools and stuff like that. And I used to do funerals as an altar boy with their thing. And I would have made one. In Victorian times, they had professional mourners. And I think I would have been a great professional mourner because I get very upset if I see somebody else upset. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And and so you kind of felt. Even now, and I saw somebody reading the novel the other day in the park, and when I was reading, you're very attuned to other people reading the same thing. I see them on the tube, and on occasion I did. I'd go up and go, "Where have you got to? Are you all right?"
Yeah,
it is such a powerful thing, and that's why it was so amazing to be a part of. I've never. As I was saying, you knew that there were people in the audiences who were dealing with those issues currently there, and also it's one of the youngest audiences I've ever seen in the West End, which is great on lots of levels, because we want young people to be going to the theatre, but it's because it meant so much to them, those issues. So again, it's just a real privilege to be able to present that in such a dynamic and incredible way. But yeah, it was tough. It was tough for us and tough for them.
Yeah. I think a word that came up a lot, because you gave this interview with the cast to, I think it was Waterstones, with the BBC Arts correspondent.
Yeah.
And a word that kept jumping out there was, as you just said, was privilege. It was a privilege to bring this piece to the stage, and to do it on such a high level, and to get it out to so many people, of course. And then for people who, as you say, it sold out quickly. But then we had the cinema broadcast a couple of months ago, so people have still had the opportunity to see it. But yeah, I think I was just going to tell a quick story, if I may. I got this. I won't say her name, but someone I know at the gym just up the road. She went to see it at the Pinter, and she took a friend who actually worked in, it's a company, it's like the Samaritans in a way, but she helps with people who specifically have been through sexual assault experiences, tragically so. And this is not there were certain moments in the play where she had to do this because, she was reminded of that, and you were evoking that visceral quality. And you spoke about people in the audience having seizures and stuff. And
and leaving because they couldn't cope, because it was so triggering for them. People would leave, and fair enough,
Yeah. What was because I spoke to Elliot about this as well. The amount of, sometimes you'd be in the middle of a scene, and so you'd hear from the audience, stop the show, and then your stage manager would have to rush on and just
It happened all the time. I mean, it was like it, because it was very triggering. And there was a sort of heightened sense of that. Maybe partly people were sort of preconditioned for it, because a lot of blurb went out with tickets and stuff saying these are issues that might affect you and blah blah blah. But the reality of that, particularly like you and on stage seats where you're very up close and personal, there's a lot to deal with. I know, because I was right there. I had an audience right behind me where my doctor's station was. I could hear, but I got very attuned to somebody who was about to faint, or you'd hear okay. And then very selfishly as an actor, going, not just that. It was a really good line coming up.
It's like shush, 1 minute.
That's the kind of gallows humor that you need to kind of apply when you're doing something like that. But it was overwhelming for a lot of people, and that's extraordinary. You can't say it's a good or a bad thing. It is what it is. The piece is what it is, and it's extraordinary. And it's been accused of being torture porn, which I think is really unfair.
Yeah, I don't agree with that.
Because it's so much more than that, and it's so much more caring, and has so much more heart than that, and is it's not trying to solve any problems, but it's presenting them. And that's, where the responsibility and the privilege comes from, is because we go, these issues aren't talked about, and the kind of platforms that they should be. And so, it was extraordinary.
Yeah. I remember I came to see the Thursday matinee, I think I said before, and I walked out at the interval. And I think also one thing I want to say actually is that I thought the first act ended brilliantly in a way, because usually in some shows it's like boom, like that's the end of the show, and then you're kind of like, okay, that's the end, now let's go get a drink, whereas with this one, I don't know how to describe it, but it just faded so slowly, beautifully, and then all of a sudden you had the ushers going, okay, that's the end.
Well, because we carried on, we stayed on stage after the end of the first act, and we were cooking and eating and doing stuff. And I think Ivo's point is that life goes on. It's like when you go to a family funeral or something that's really upsetting like that, and it's a lovely sunny day and everyone's going on with their business. You think, why hasn't the world stopped? This awful thing has happened, but yet you're all laughing and enjoying yourself. But that is life, and I think that's what he was trying to show. There's no endings like that.
Yeah.
You carry on or you don't carry on, and sadly for Jude, in the end, it's too much, and for himself. It's a lot of people, particularly when we were signing after the show or whatever, would start to tell you their stories. And sometimes that was quite difficult, or awkward. I mean, sometimes it was very difficult because people, I don't know if I was playing a doctor, but told me horrendous things. And I'm an actor, I'm not a medical professional, or a psychologist, and all you can really do is listen. But the fact that people feel obliged, the need to tell you their stories, I think means that what we were trying to do is somehow worked, because they're able to unburden or share it. And if they can share their experiences, then they have the sense, hopefully, then that they're not alone, that they're not the only one going through those things. So again, the word privilege keeps coming back, because wow,
I think another word is trust. They trusted you with their stories.
Extraordinary. I remember doing Kite Run a few years ago at the Wyndham's, and this American soldier plays, for those who don't know, set in Afghanistan, and then America, and about refugees, and this American soldier had done 3 terms. It served in Afghanistan 3 times, I think. And he was like, "Oh, I'm based in Germany now, but I flew over because I had to come and see this." And then started telling me his stories about the war. And then at the end, he was thanking me so profoundly for doing this play and doing this role. And I was like, "Mate, you're the real thing.
You're the hero.
You're the hero of this. You're the real deal." And it's the same with Little Life. I get quite upset just even thinking about the things that people did share, and the kind of lost look in their eyes sometimes. And you go, wow, I know, at the very least, I'm able to unlock that. You're not going to go home and sit alone and think about it. Somebody told me about, a young woman told me about somebody, a friend, a close friend of hers who'd committed suicide, things like that. You just go, like a week before. And you kind of go, wow. Yeah. But, it is privilege. But a responsibility too.
Yeah. Wow. Because, I know there was a girl in the, I remember so distinctly the interval happened, and I went out, and because when you're at the Pinter, because we're on stage, we were kind of ushered through, like, off stage and then up a flight of stairs and then back into the main foyer where the bar is and the toilets. and I just got up the stairs and I turned right, and there was this group of girls just coming out of the dress. I think it was a dress circle, and one of them was just bawling her eyes out, just completely gone to pieces. And I remember the first thought that went through my head was, "Wow, that's only the interval," and but how much she resonated with that. I mean, obviously, I don't know her, I don't know her story, but it's just amazing how just tears.
Oh no, but I saw people inconsolable after the show. The line I heard that you don't normally want to hear because I was so close to the audience, where they're sitting on stage, especially one performance at the interval. I had somebody say, "Oh, it can't get any worse, can it?" Meaning, and I was thinking, should I tell them? Do I say anything at this point? Well, have a drink.
The bar's open. Have a vodka and tonic.
Have a stiff gin and tonic. Yeah. But I mean, to see the effect it has on people was staggering. In the curtain call, because we can see quite a chunk of the audience, and you just see people sobbing uncontrollably. Wow.
Yeah, amazing. And then just going back to a question I wanted to ask you earlier, but I think you might have answered this already, but what do you think Andy, because every character in this play stands for a particular thing. So like Jude stands for what happens to him, the trauma, the mental health, the unwillingness to get better in a way, which Hanya talks about as well. What do you think Andy stands for in this piece?
It's difficult to say because he's such a complex character in a way, and in the play you don't have the opportunity to go into that as much as you do in the novel and see the other aspects of their relationship in his life. But he's kind of everything to, in some ways, to Jude. He's the defender and the healer and the listener and the confidant, who, as I said, at the same time has his own life, presumably somewhere. It's like he seems to always be on tap and available. And he's just, he's, on one level, he's this unflappable medical professional who just deals with these situations. But the other side of him is kind of an emotional mess. He's doing all the wrong things.
Yeah.
So I don't know that, and his, as I say, it all comes from a good place, but he does get very angry. He gets really frustrated. He's most calm in the descriptions of him when he's, stitching a wound or dealing with some, bandaging. Well, I didn't really do that much bandaging in real life, I suppose, but that we know when he's doing those things, he's just really calm, and then he snaps. He has these incredibly huge, very rapid mood swings. But I think he has two modes. I think Hanya describes him as, and that's calm and brusque, and you see them often in the same moment. Just doing that. I go, what are you doing? And he's that. Then he is a ball of frustration, but again, it all comes out of love. It's all wanting to try and help. And I think that's why people respond to him, because he gives everything, and we'd all like to be a bit more like that,
Yeah. And I just got I do have some lighter questions for you about Andy, so it's not all going to be doom and gloom today. But just one more on this sort of level, if I may. Again, spoiler alert, just to let you know, this is towards the end. So there's anyone who's seen the play or read the book, you know what I'm talking about. So there's a bit at the end where Jude's health is deteriorated so bad, and he loses a lot of weight as well, to the point where there's a point where Andy threatens to put him on a drip, so force feed him. Yeah.
When in the book again, he goes to visit him, and he's lost so much weight that this is going to be a spoiler alert, that the things that we're trying to do to help him no longer can work.
Yeah.
and he gets so frustrated with him, and it's very sad because they Jude by that point is kind of switched off, and the description when they meet at that point is that they shake hands like strangers.
Yeah.
And that's something very cold and telling. And it's like, there's no way back now. And so they, you know, we're at the stage of interventions and all the rest of it. And that's doubly hard for characters like Andy to deal with, because you're literally watching somebody disappear in front of you who you care so much about. And that's the most painful thing in the world, like watching a partner with Alzheimer's or something disappear.
And there's I think Andy makes the call to amputate his legs.
Yeah.
And you know, going back to
he does the operation, he does it himself.
Yeah, he does. Yeah. And you going back to your overhearing the audience's comment, oh, it can't get any worse than this, can it? And then towards, funny enough, one thing a few other people I know who went to see it said, oh, I've been to see it. Oh, are you going? Yeah, I'm going in a couple of weeks. And he goes, well, what can you tell me? I said, well, I won't tell you anything. I won't spoil it for you. But one thing I will say is that it gets to a point where you think, oh, wow, that was pretty bad. And then you think, okay, no, it can't get any worse than this. And you're like, oh, no, it actually does. And then
it's relentless for 3 hours, 40 minutes. You know, I think there are 4 laughs in the play or something. Yeah. I should be selling it more.
Selling more. Yeah, I'll just do a quick one. I'll do a quick one here. Really? So I said that there's a bit where William goes, you know, I can't get to you, Jude. You're like this mountain range. You're like, I can't access you at all. And Jude goes, are you comparing me to New Zealand?
I think that's, so basically you're saying I'm New Zealand. It's a very funny line, actually.
Yeah, that's good.
Always made me laugh. Yeah.
But he makes that decision. So, you know, you've been through, I think up to that point, like 3 hours, 20, and then like the last 20 minutes, you see Jude, you know, he has this amputation, and then, and you sat there as an audience thinking, but how? Like, how can it, you know,
at that point where I break the news to him that has to happen, you know, how do you say to somebody, I got to cut your legs off?
Yeah, what was that like to play every night and afternoon?
I love that moment, actually, because there was such a connection with James and I, because he would look at me with such desperation, and it was real. I mean, it was extraordinary.
Of course, yeah.
We really connect. Because it's such a powerful moment. I'm saying, well, you know, you've got hardly anything in your life, and I'm going to take away your body, basically. You know,
yeah. But it's sadly, again, it's the dichotomy, like the dynamic or the contrast between wanting to help, because again, like you say, you're doing it out of love. You feel like this is going to help. It's extreme.
Well, as you say earlier, you know, you have to do something that's even more painful to help you. But that's the nature of the thing. Yeah.
But then the flip side, it makes it worse in a way. But and I did have a question about because Andy, as you said earlier, he passes away shortly after Jude does. And so, from you as Emilio, what do you think happens next to Andy after Jude?
Well, there isn't much next. Well, because he's gone in 3 years.
Well, those 3 years, what do you think happens
in that interim? I don't know, because, as I say, I think he is heartbroken. He doesn't, as far as I know, he doesn't actually retire. You know, as I said, he has a wife and children, but his kind of life's work's done. And I think that's what's sad. So I don't think it was a happy last 3 years, particularly. I think a lot of regret and going over should have beens and what ifs and could have beens, and that's not a nice thing to think about him spending his last days. I mean, I'm hoping it was a very sudden and massive attack when it happens.
Yeah. But no pain.
Yeah. And because obviously other characters have gone as well, so he doesn't have them around, because he's known them all since they were very young. You know, decades they've known each other. So he's lost a lot of people in one fell swoop.
Yeah.
So a not happy ending for Andy, sadly.
Mm. A Little Life.
Mulling over. I don't think he wrote his memoirs.
just a little pamphlet or something.
Yeah, sadly, yeah. Oops.
Yeah. You know what I mean? Anyway, I do have some. Anyway, yeah. I do have some positive things about Andy. Like, let's just sort of let's lift the mood just for a second.
Yeah.
I tell you what, man. One element of this show that really stuck with me was the because you say it's visceral not only because of what happens, but the space became so alive in the fact that there was cooking and there was smells in the air, and one of my
video screens playing.
Yes, big video screens it's
actually the journey that Jude makes in the book through New York. The video that they filmed it all early in the morning in New York and stuff. So there's lots. Yeah, there's lots happening, and I think for a lot of people that was a blessed relief, especially at those moments, and people who aren't good with blood. Like a good friend of mine, Tracy Ann Oberman, came to see it, and she was like, "I looked at a lot of cooking." And Amari was painting on the other side. Said, "Yeah, I was watching him paint because she couldn't cope with a lot of people." So, but again, all of that is Ivo and Jan's way of saying this: life goes on. We've got to eat, we've got to live, we've got to work and do those things. Whatever's happening inside, Jude works. How he manages to function as a high functioning lawyer. It's like, wow. But we do. What is that? I don't know what the actual question was there.
No, I just having what's kind of two in one really. Just to sort of preface it, one of my favorite moments to play was actually with you were all in the kitchen area, and then some particularly like kind of a good moment in Jude's life happened. I think him and Willem finally get together, and then I think there's a line which says, "I'm not sure what Harold's going to think about this." And then Harold just Zubin playing Harold just walks going, "I made dessert."
So, yeah, I'm so happy for you.
I'm so happy for you.
Yeah, exactly. And then we all eat mess, which we had a lot of.
Yeah. I think Rowan said he's never
I was having smaller and smaller spoons as my costume tighter and tighter.
Yeah. Rowan said he's never eaten so much eaten mess in his life.
I know, we were forcing it on the crew eventually. Like,
please just eat it.
Well, we were having because Zubin was cooking the whole time.
He was, yeah.
He cooks us like olive and tomato tarts and fish cakes. Fish cakes were delicious, actually. There's a great attention to detail, especially it's a very design-led show in lots of ways, actually. And as I said, that's why it was a blessing to have all of that in the rehearsal room. So we were cooking there, and then we had blood and the taps and sinks, and so you couldn't do the things, and that's also why it was great to be off book from the beginning, because you can't bandage someone's arm with a script in your hand. You just physically can't.
Yeah,
and you at first you're thinking, oh god, it's a big thing, especially as I was doing another show. I've got to learn. And then you get there and think, oh, thank God, actually, because this is great. Yeah. And they're distraction activities as well, which is great for an actor. We all complain about props, but actually it's brilliant to have something to play through. Apart from the bloody rubber gloves, I feared nothing as much as those gloves, and because everything's timed within an inch of its life in that play. So I had to get them on by a certain time, and sometimes it was just like impossible. I loathed them. And you'd have to approach it as an exercise. I am the master of these gloves. It's nothing else. Not the lines, not the scenes, not the blood, not the horror, not the anything was as terrifying as getting that glove on.
If anyone says to you, "Oh my God, you appeared in A Little Life," what was the most harrowing part about it? Because there's so many things.
Rubber gloves.
Those bloody rubber gloves.
My only consolation is that the Dutch actor who played it before was even worse at getting them on than I was.
Oh, there you go. Small victories, huh?
Yeah, exactly. Small victories.
Yeah.
But you can do it all, family.
Yeah. I was thinking, did the company, the original Dutch company, did they actually get in touch with you guys? Did they come and see anything? Did you have a Zoom chat with them? Did any contact?
We were given the option to watch their version of it.
Okay.
And I thought I was going to just for the kind of medical procedures, but actually it so colours your opinion of things. And it's like when you leave a production, you never really want to go and see it because you know, it's just weird. So I never watched it in the end. But also they're a permanent company, so they work in reps, so they're doing other stuff all the time. So no, but obviously Ivo and Jan and the costume designer and stuff had all worked on that. And we had the musical director, all those people who had been involved in that. So that was a big help because they could, you know, talk us through, and obviously they solved a lot of the problems, staging problems, while doing the Dutch production, which they did in New York as well, and Edinburgh here. They brought it. But no, there wasn't any other particular contact. Several audience members had seen both, had seen the Dutch ones all around. So,
yeah, and I think also you don't want to watch something which you're about to play and you think, oh, I'm going to play it like that, or kind of see it, and you want to make, no, I don't want to see that. I want to make my own interpretation of this.
Well, because what's in my head is not what you see, you know, as an audience.
That's right.
Member. Yeah. So I don't want to have that coloured. I'm playing a certain character, and he exists in a certain way in my head. So I'm often amazed at the kind, you know, things I get cast out, and I think, oh, really? I've never cast me in that. Baba in Kite Run is described as being 6'6" with hands that can rip trees out of the ground. Okay, I'll play that then. But what I have to be is that character in my head, because otherwise you can't play it. And so if you see somebody else doing it, it just colours you're thinking about it, you know, influence, it can influence you too much. So I'd rather not.
Yeah, you want to find your own way into it, which is
good. Find out who he is, or who they are.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, great stuff. I've just got a few more questions for you, Emilio, and then we're just going to sort of finish a little life, and then we'll come to sort of the last few questions. Obviously, the big question, actually, I sadly didn't get the chance to ask Elliot, but Hanya was quite involved in this. Hanya Yanagihara was she quite involved in rehearsals?
Yes and no, because she wasn't in the room that much. She would come and watch bits when she was here, because she lives in New York. But she'd very much handed over the adaptation on the responsibilities for that to Ivo and his co-writer, which is a brave and good decision. She was there to consult and reference the book and talk about our characters and stuff like that. But it was very much Ivo's production, and she stepped back from it. And I think that's good, because she didn't write the adaptation. She was involved in it, but she didn't write the adaptation. So it has to exist as a thing in its own right. But she is amazing, and she was available all the time. She visits here anyway in her guise as her main job is she's the style editor the editor for the New York Times Style magazine.
Oh wow.
That's her day job. So she would be here for the Paris fashion shows or the London fashion shows or whatever. But she's an incredible person. We tried to get to the heart of why she wrote the book and things like that. And she's quite guarded. All she would say is it was a difficult period in her life. Sherlock. But she's incredible. Because when I first met her, we set up meetings for us to talk about our characters with her.
Yeah.
In her hotel in London, and I had a 2-hour slot with her, which was amazing. And I only left in the end because I had to go and do Best of Enemies. I had a performance that night. We spoke about the book and the play for about half an hour, and then we just started talking about everything under the sun, because she has this extraordinary mind, and we have lots of mutual interests and things as well, and a couple of mutual friends, and she's a fascinating woman. But also as Ivo did very hardly any character work with us at all. That was left to us very much to discover who those characters were. And basically his point was that, you've got this book. And the book was our backstory. So when I was reading it, I made copious notes. So then I went in and I was quoting Hanya's book to Hanya, saying, in this point, he does this, or he says this, or feels this, what was it like? And again, knowing that her father was a doctor, talk about those experiences. But then we just veered off and talked about everything. And she's fab, and I'd like to think that, well, I know we've become friends and we're hoping to meet up in either when she's here for a fashion show or in New York or something. So, but yeah, incredible, just incredible.
Yeah.
But she was able to answer questions, and then you saw that interview as well. And she's very candid and open about things. And, but now it's a dream working with her.
Because it's a bit of a silly question, silly way of putting it, but she wrote the book, so she knows all of these characters inside and out. And I think amazing to say, like, oh, you got this question about Andy. So, Hanya, what how did they do this? And she'd be like, yes or no, or like, and then explain why in a way.
To some degree, she did, but also she was like a fangirl of the play. She's not really involved in theatre; it's not her milieu at all.
Okay.
So she was asking me questions constantly about how you approach characters, what you do with things on stage, and what actors are like, because she tends to know people in other worlds more. So she was fascinated by it, and she came to see it several times. She always sat in the front row of the circle. It's her favourite spot. She could see everything. I think she's just really pleased because she's written this amazing book that is already a success. Then for it to have another life, I think thrilled her, which I was thrilled about. Because she's such a lovely person. I mean, she was involved to that degree. We knew we could speak to her, and she was really, the day I got cast, she sent me a lovely email, and it said, as soon as you've read the book, phone me and we can talk about him, which we did. And she's incredibly generous on that front, but wonderful.
Wonderful.
That's what I say about her. She's wonderful.
Of course. And of course, Ivo as well. It's interesting to hear about a director who doesn't do much character work in a way. I think I heard a story that I'm not sure what play he was doing, but I think he said, play this scene like you're a lizard or something, or play this like you're.
He gave very few notes as well. When he did, they were very succinct, and I can't think of an example, but very precise like that. As I said, a lot of it is very technical, the show, and so that dictates a lot of what you do in terms of staging. Because if you've got to bandage something or cook something, it's very technical. So a lot of the input was coming from Jan, from his designer and partner. The associate director would, because he's Jeff, who's worked with Ivo a lot, really understands his thinking. Because I didn't know what his process was going to be like when I went in there. You didn't sit at a table at all on day one. In fact, before day one, because I went in to talk to a medical advisor, about bandage and stuff like that. And Eva just heard that I was in the building and they'd started rehearsals. And he said, oh, well, get him into costume and bring down. I went straight in and did my first scene. Before I was due to start rehearsals. And that's just the way it works. It's you're on your feet and in it, and you do it. There's very little discussion about it.
That's good.
So probably the first day or two, I was probably asking very literal questions like, oh, so is there a time lapse here or a jump in time? And he'd look at you like, why question it? It is what it is. This is the scene as it's written. Just play what's written, which is kind of brilliantly freeing as you. And because of course you have got, Jude at any given point might be on stage with talking to three other characters, all from different times in his life. So he's talking to one as a little boy and another as a 40-year-old. So
Mm.
you can't question the kind of reality of the situation. And that kind of applies, I think, to a lot of his work. You just have to be in the moment and do what you would do. Say what you say to somebody, you know. Yeah. And he seemed to quite like what I was doing. I don't know.
I'm sure
Never told me off.
That's a good sign. That's a good sign.
I take that as a good one.
Yeah. Of course he did. Of course he did. Yeah, and I think also that the memories.
He trusts actors. He likes actors.
Yeah.
And he can't. You know, he casts people he thinks are right for it. And then the rest, you know, a lot of the rest is up to us. That's our job.
Well, there you go.
Is to fill out the fill in the gaps.
But I think it's the blending of memories, the time lapses as well, because Jude's little, you know, his childhood is always with him in a way. I think that was beautiful, the way that Ivo sort of crafted all that, and then Andy would come on, and it would be like present day again, wouldn't it?
Yeah, but that we have selective memory. We all do. We remember. I was having a discussion with somebody the other day, and we remembered something from quite a while ago, but in completely different ways. We were arguing the toss. No, that happened. No, it happened this way. That happened this way. And that's how our mind works, I think. And that's, I think, brilliantly done in the play, actually. And fascinating. It's why you're so engaged as well with the Jude character, especially. And James played him so brilliantly. Being able to literally turn on the sixpence. Incredible. Yeah.
And of course, you were fantastic as well, mate. You know, I really, I don't think I said that already, but yeah, your performance as Andy was tender. It was heartbreaking. It was, you know, because I could see when you did it, both when I was lucky enough to be in the theatre and then, of course, in the cinema broadcast. I saw it twice. But
I haven't seen the podcast yet, the cinema.
Yeah, no, it's very different, you know, because when you're in the theatre, you know, you see it, you know, because you're there in the room, whereas the cinema, it's a little bit different. But
we had cameras everywhere, above and in the set.
Yeah.
So great,
still captured it brilliantly. Of course, there's no difference in the experience other than, you know, you don't go to theatre, you go to the cinema. But your performance as Andy, Emilio, was it was tender, heartbreaking. It was, I could see in you your need to help Jude, and your need to help him, and there was this melancholy about you, because you knew that, you know, for the past 30 years, you know, you've given Jude all this advice, and every single time he doesn't seem to be doing it. Like you say to him, "Have you eaten?" Like it's like, yeah, of course I have, but you're losing weight. Are you cutting yourself? No,
well, he knows that Jude's lying to him.
Yeah,
as well, a lot of the time, and that's heartbreaking in itself, because, you know, it's just beautiful. Thank you very much for saying that. I love playing Andy.
It was beautifully done. I mean, it was really, really lovely work, man. I really, really enjoyed it. And if it's available, I'd love to see your work as Baba, actually, because I studied the Kite Runner, and you know,
is it available?
I'm not sure. I mean, there might be recorded somewhere, but then I might be getting into trouble.
Maybe I'm not sure. We didn't do an NT live with it, but it was recorded. So I'll have a look around. There might be some of it. That production is coming back without me in the, the new year.
Damn it!
It's the show that gives and gives. I love playing Baba, but I played it on and off for 4 years. It was originally Nottingham and Liverpool production, and then toured briefly in 2014. And then because of the film, Paramount owned the copyright, so there was a long delay before it came into the West End. We went to Wyndham's. Then it was a big hit and transferred to the Playhouse Theatre, and then toured again. And then I stopped kind of halfway through that tour, because I love playing him, and I didn't want to stop loving playing him.
Yeah.
You know, and you get those great characters, you don't want to fall out of love with them. And so I stopped while I still love playing it. So,
because
but I'm sure the new Baba, whoever he is, will be marvelous.
Yeah, I'm sure. But imagine there's sadly, and I don't mean bad on this actor at all, but I don't know who he is. But you say he gets ill one night, and his understudy gets ill as well, and you get a phone call saying, "Emilio, we need you in London. we need you tonight to play Baba. Like, just can you do it? Can you help us out?" What would you say?
if I had a few hours,
of course,
I probably could. I think because there are characters like that, and when we remounted it, so that after a 2-year gap, I kind of opened up the script and I went, I know this, and so I didn't have to kind of really relearn it. They go in as soon as you start doing it, as soon as you're up on your feet in those situations, it comes back to you. It's funny what stays in, but we have like a Rolodex in our head, don't we? And it's just we turn it back when we don't need it, and bring it to the fore when we do. It's nuts, but
it's all good. It's all good. Just got 2 more questions for you, Emilio, for today. Just to close a little life chapter of this episode. I'm always interested about what characters give you in the process, because I had an acting coach, Alison Pargeter. I think I'm getting her name right. She's done all kinds of stuff. She was in Chernobyl a few years ago for HBO, and she said to me one time. She said, a character always gives you something you didn't have before, and it takes away something that you had before, which you don't have anymore in light of playing this role. So final little life question is, what do you think Andy's given you, and what has he taken away?
Wow, that's a good question, and one that I don't know if I can answer, but
that's okay.
That's a tough question. All characters, as you say, give you something because they give you insight, and that's the joy of our job, is that we get to play people who are so unlike us that we, and be in situations that we'll never be in, whether that's a mad, crazy action movie or all those things, and that's the joy of them. So it's just to be able to be in somebody else's shoes has to change you in unquantifiable ways, I think. My parents always wanted me to be a doctor, so maybe I'm doing a wish fulfillment. But actually, I played lots of doctors.
Yeah, you'd be like, see, I am a doctor.
Mum would be happy. I think, as you very kindly said, he's so beautifully empathetic. I was aware of that because I can be quite impatient, or a lot of us can. In fact, there was one point in that scene that you referred to with the lighter. I'm trying to do, and I say it's going to hurt. James said to me after one performance, he said, "You are being beautifully empathetic, but you're actually groaning more than I am." And I didn't realise I was doing it. So I was doing that as I'm trying to heal this wound.
Yeah. And James is there going,
it's like, I don't need to bother. We laughed a lot about that because you just... but that's kind of at the heart of who Andy is. And so I've been exposed to that. I think that's something he's given me. I don't think he took anything away from me, not that I've noticed.
Okay. Or later.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, great, brilliant. Just my final 2 questions for you, Emilio, before we finish. It's kind of a new one I've been thinking about recently because, having been to drama school, you're always given loads of advice, keep going, keep at it, But, if I was to cast your mind back to when you were starting out, your early years in this industry, what would you say was a piece of advice you wish you were told then that you weren't at the time?
It's advice that I give to young actors now, is basically learn your lines and be on time. It's
simple.
As fundamental as that. And you'd be amazed at how many people don't twig that for a long while.
Yeah.
The other one, can I swear in this?
Yeah, of course you can.
Yeah, okay.
Fuck it.
Don't be a
just easy.
It's as easy to be a nice person.
Yeah.
When you're in an audition, they're assessing you not just for how well you can play the part, but whether or not they want to work with you as a person.
Yeah.
And I like to say, well, I know I've had jobs over the years, I've been doing this for 30 years, with people I've worked with before, because they want to work with me again, and I take that as a real compliment. You know, people like having me in the room. So be nice, you know, be engaged, try and be fun, and offer up whatever you can bring to the room. Don't be an arsehole.
Yeah. Simple. Yeah. And just to finish on, first of all, if I get to that, thank you so much for today. I've absolutely
it's been fun.
It's been really love talking to you today, and jumping back into a little life again. It's always great. And
that's remember, because it's 3 months now since we did it. So,
I know. Where's 3 months gone? It's crazy. But, but I'd love to have you back on again in the future to talk more about your work, and to hear more about the stuff you're going to be doing in the next year. And I've got some questions about the Kite Runner in my head. I'd love to talk to you about that at some point. Yeah, because
that is a long time ago. So.
Yeah. Oh yeah, sure, yeah. But I'll send you my questions over beforehand. But we'll talk about that. But yeah, I'd love to have you back on to talk more about more stuff.
Thank you for having me this time. It's been great.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Thank you so much. And just to finish on, last question for every guest, which is, what's been an experience or experiences you've had in your career up to this point that you're never ever going to forget?
Oh lordy, as I say, I've been doing it for 30 years professionally. But I've got so many memories from being a 5-year-old. I played, what's that song? Where's that mouse? The mouse with clogs on. That was my first starring role, and I also played the triangle in that concert at my infant school. So I remember that. I remember the excitement of waiting to be the mouse in clogs, tap dancing. I don't know. So many, working with legends like Ridley Scott on Kingdom of Heaven.
Wow.
And I didn't get to properly meet him until we were on set. And I remember it was the first setup was a night shoot in the middle of the desert in Morocco. We were filming with the biggest crane camera I've ever seen in my life. It seemed to come from out of nowhere and end up here. 1,000 extras from the Moroccan army, all on horseback. They'd built Jerusalem in the desert. And I was taken to my trailer, and I got in, and I suddenly went, "Oh God, what if I've forgotten how to act?" And then there's something in you, and this is good advice as well, actually, for young actors particularly, is you go, "Now, this is an amazing experience. I'm going to be working on this incredible film with these incredible actors, incredible director, Ridley Scott. You have to enjoy this." And so somehow I got on set, there was Ridley Scott, was doing the setup, and all nerves went, and I went, "Oh, I've got an idea about this scene." To
Ridley Scott.
Unfortunately, also loves actors. I'm hearing myself say, shut up. But yeah, when you have those experiences, you have to enjoy them. Doing Game of Thrones, arriving there, and there's 200 people working on costume alone. This huge setup, and just think, just this is fun. You have to enjoy it. It was a funny instant there, because I had a great job. I was playing a Marine slave master, and I get killed. I get killed by 200 slaves, and the director was like, "That's great, looks great. We're doing some crucifixions tomorrow. Maybe we'll crucify you." And the other producer said, "He's just been killed by 200 slaves. He's very dead."
He's very dead.
But yeah, I know you're on the set, something like that, which is just such a huge thing, and it's exciting. And I like watching what other people do and all their jobs. I don't know what half their jobs are. Or on Red 2 being killed by Anthony Hopkins in a room with John Malkovich and Bruce Willis, and but Anthony Hopkins stabs me through the heart and then improvises a line, "Sorry about the blood on the carpet, Ambassador." And I think, I've just been killed by Hannibal Lecter. That's really cool. And then have to sit through the next scene, dead on the floor. Just all those. That's, as I was saying before, just having the privilege to do the thing you love. I love going into work. I love going to the rehearsal room, and being able to do that for 30 years. How brilliant is that?
Yeah.
And as we've talked about quite a lot in this, the privilege of being able to share those experiences and give people and issues a platform so they can recognize themselves. That never wears off. That is always thrilling and beautiful and amazing. So, yeah.
Just very quickly, your idea to Ridley Scott, did it work? Did he take it?
I don't remember what it was actually, because I immediately remember editing myself, thinking, don't say anything else.
Don't just shush.
Just listen.
Ridley Scott is there. Listen.
Yeah, he knows what he's doing.
Yeah.
And I was only playing a Saracen engineer. I only had 2 lines or something. So
yeah. Well, hey, I'm sure.
I did have to tell them how to invade Jerusalem. So it's crucial.
Yes, absolutely. Oh God! On that note, I think that's a good place to finish. Emilio, thank you so much.
Oh, no, thank you.
This has been amazing. I've loved talking to you about everything, and I can't wait to see what more work you do. And yeah, it's been an absolute pleasure. Thank you.
We'll definitely do it again sometime.
Oh, absolutely. Cool. If you just hang on, I'll finish the recording. We'll do a debrief afterwards. Yeah, guys, thank you for watching. Thank you for listening. This has been the Uncensored Critic podcast. And I'll be back very, very soon. Thank you as always for tuning in. It means the world to me. And thank you for 2023. I got my Spotify Wrapped details through the other day, and new streams, etc. But thank you for tuning in. But anyway, enough for that. Emilio, just thank you so much, sir.
Pleasure, man.